All right, so welcome to episode number 3 of Paint Along with Me. This is Israel Solomon. I'm a visual artist located in Indianapolis, Indiana, and today I am working on an imaginary landscape. As I previously mentioned, right now I'm working on a solo show titled Oasis that's going to be opening up soon. And a lot of the artwork is based in landscapes and still lifes. And, thinking about the idea of an oasis as an imaginary space or place, almost like a paradise that you can escape to. That's really what I'm trying to create with this work and this body of paintings that I'm creating right now. So I started this painting a couple of days ago, and I got all the base colors and tones laid in, and I allowed it to dry using oil paints. And now I'm sort of going back over some of those areas, and I'm making some of the colors deeper, richer, and also adding some light into the image to make some things come out more and be less flat. So today I'm focusing on deepening the colors using more blues to create a more mystified sky. It's a little brighter than what I wanted right now because I want this to feel more like it's almost not necessarily nighttime, but a darker sky involved. And then I have the water that's sort of kind of reflecting what's going on in the sky. So that's what I'm going to be working on today. So I'm going to go ahead and get myself started, and I'll just sort of walk you through the process and tell you what I'm thinking and what I'm doing as I go. So right now, I'm grabbing some cerulean blue, and I'm placing it on my palette, squeezing out just a little bit. I like to just I don't over squeeze out paint onto my palette. I'm very frugal, and I like to ensure that I am using every ounce of paint that I am putting onto my palette because it can get very expensive. So you have to be frugal, you know, in order to keep this thing going. Unless you have endless amounts of money, which I don't. So I've learned through my working process to be very frugal and to utilize all the paint that I can use. Um, I've got it mixed in with a liquid, and liquid is a medium that you can put in the oil paints, and I've explained this before. It helps speed up dry times. It also helps to create a gloss on the image. Now, I don't want to put too much liquid into the paint because I don't want it to be over glossy. As when the painting dries, I do like to varnish it with a layer of gloss. So I don't want a painting to be over glossy to where when you're looking at it underneath the light, you can't really see it because all you see is a shimmer. I've made that mistake before, and I try to avoid that. So, I try to make sure that the layers of gloss are not overbearing, but enough to really um, make the colors pop out even more when the painting is completed. So I've got this cerulean blue on my brush along with a little bit of white. And I'm going to start going into some of these blue areas and I'm going to start to deepen those colors. So, like right through here, I do want this to be a little bit more blue. So, I'm going to go through here and I'm just going to start bringing this in with this wet brush. Try to be consistent with my strokes, sort of moving it back and forth. There's so many different styles of paintings, like I paint in layers. Um, Almost like glazing. So because of that, I'm allowed, not allowed, but I allow myself the ability to sort of go back and forth on the canvas, as to opposed to maybe someone who has much of a thicker or heavier approach. They might put down a stroke and just leave it there. That's not how I work, but I really admire those who do work that way. There's so many different ways to approach paintings, and there's so many different styles that have been developed over the years. So my suggestion is really finding out what works best for you and what complements you and going in that direction. And then occasionally challenging yourself too, though, to do things that are out of the norm of what you do. And that helps you to, learn more. Also, doing things out of the norm gives you another tool in your artist tool belt. So, if you approach a painting differently from what you normally would, it's highly likely that you're going to learn something from that because you're exploring. And when we explore, we learn things. If you go hiking, you're going to learn some stuff while you're going hiking. If you read a book, biography, you're going to learn something about an individual maybe that you hadn't learned before. So same thing with painting and art. If you are constantly challenging yourself, um, and opening your mind to new things and new experiences, you're going to learn more. And you're going to hear me say it a lot, but it's extremely important, in my opinion, to be open-minded in regards to what you're creating and what you're doing, because it just it's going to improve your ability to express yourself. I look at it this way. I'm a very imaginative person. I always have been ever since I was a kid. I've had a very vivid imagination. I don't know if it's any more or less than anyone else's, but I do have a vivid imagination. And, I'm the type of person that can be sitting in a room full of people and my mind has wandered off somewhere else really quickly and easily. And, not as a disrespect to those who I'm with, it's just my imagination kind of runs wild. So, with that imagination, I think that the more tools that you have as an artist and the more that you know and the more that you learn, the closer you can get to a one of one with what you're seeing in your mind and being able to produce it. So, what I mean by that is, when I was younger, I would see images in my head and I couldn't reproduce them, I couldn't recreate them. But the more that I learned and the more that I worked as a painter, as a drawer, as a creative individual, I've even done graphic design. Um, it has enabled me to get closer to what I see in my mind being on the canvas or whatever surface it is that I'm working on. So the more tools you have, I believe the closer you can get to that. Do you ever get to a one of one? So what you see is in your mind is actually one of one to what you put onto the canvas or whatever surface? I don't know. I don't think so. Even, for maybe the most highest master that's ever painted, do you ever create a one of one? I doubt it. I think there's always room for improvement. And that's what makes us human because we're imperfect. But the more that we work and the more that we create, the closer we get. And I think that's the really cool thing about making stuff. And that's what drives me to create. Um, this is my career, this is my profession, this is how I make money. However, there's more to it than just, making money. There's a lot of other things that, I could do that are more practical than being a visual artist, a professional artist. As a professional artist, you have ups and you have downs. And, you know, I believe that's how it goes for the majority of us. I would be lying to you if I told you that I'm always up. There's times where things are not going great. There's times where things are going amazing. And, it's like I can't even breathe because I have so many opportunities. And then there's times where I'm questioning myself and I'm asking, where is everybody at? Why is nobody interested in my work right now? You have to have something to keep yourself continuously going through those times because it's great when things are going amazing. But what are you going to do when things aren't going great? You going to quit or are you going to keep on going? That's something you have to ask yourself. And both options are okay. If you have to take a step back, that's okay. That's fine. If that's what's going to make you feel better, then go with what's going to make you feel better. It's okay to feel good. If you're telling yourself, "Nah, I can't stop. I got to keep on doing this." Then go for it. Go with your gut. I don't have the right answer for you. You have to decide that for yourself. So, as you can see, just going in with this blue into different sections and creating more vibrancy and more depth, more gradient. This deeper blue, I'm going to do the same thing. And a lot of the shifts in my paintings are extremely subtle, and you may not really see a huge shift immediately, but all of those subtle shifts and those subtle changes, they all add up. And when you're done, that's when they come together, and you can see the end of a composition. It's very important to have a vision and to have an insight on what it is that you see while you're creating. It's okay to go in blindly and freestyle and do some things out of your mind. It's also good to have a vision for what you want to do and what you want to create. Have a concept, have an idea, and go for it. When presenting your artwork, it's always good, in my opinion, to have a theme, an idea, a concept, maybe a thesis as to what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it. You know, I look at it like music. Um, I'm a hip hop head. I love other forms of music as well, but I grew up loving hip hop music, so I think of it as an album and creating an album. And some of my favorite albums that were created. And a lot of those albums, my favorite ones, have a consistent theme, a consistent mood, and aesthetic throughout the album. And it helps to tell a story and it keeps you engaged and it keeps you locked in. And I feel like those bodies of work that have those consistent themes and stories that they can share and they're human, those things stand the test of time because human experiences are shareable and relatable across cultures, across race, even across class. You know, we all go through similar experiences, even though it doesn't seem like it. So I think that, you know, coming up with a theme and trying to tell a story can be very beneficial in regards to producing your artwork. So I'm just continuing to utilize this blue. And the next thing I'm actually going to do is I'm going to add some red into it, some cadmium red medium. And I'm going to start to implement some reds into the cool colors that I'm using so far. Right now, the painting has the majority cool colors. You've got blues, greens. The warmest colors that I have are the yellows, of course. I'm thinking about the sun and warmth. But, I need to balance that out. So now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to add some cadmium red into this painting. So I'm going to squeeze a little bit onto my palette. I think it would be so cool if I had like multiple camera setups and I could show you what I'm mixing, show you different angles. But I'm a one-man show right now, so hey, you got to do what you got to do, and just keep on working. And those who are looking at my videos, I know that I've got a few people checking me out. I really appreciate you. And please, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me in the comments. If you have any type of question, ask me, and I'll answer it to the best of my ability. I think it's important to share your knowledge. I don't know it all, but I don't mind sharing with people, my knowledge and what I do know. I used to be a teacher, so that's still in me. So right here in this area where the water is deeper, um, I've added some red, smoothing that in with my dry brush. Very subtle. You may not even be able to tell that it's red um, as you're looking at the video here, but that's red that was added into that cerulean blue. And boom, there we go. We're going to do the same thing up here. Kind of splotch it on first. See that it's red mixed in with that cerulean blue. So technically, it's cadmium red medium, cerulean blue, and just a tiny bit of titanium white that I'm utilizing right here in this deeper area. So my thought process into these different layers of blues and reds and purples is the further you get away from the light source, the darker it's going to be because the light is going to be um, less present, sort of like a shadow. That's why over here on this side of the canvas, we've got the deeper colors as opposed to over on that side of the canvas, creating a balance between dark and light. And thinking about water, um, the further water gets away from the surface, the darker and the deeper it gets. And so that's what I'm doing here with the water, as to why this first layer is a lighter blue up against the land. This second layer is more of a middle blue. It's getting deeper um, as the surface goes further down, and then as it gets even deeper, it gets darker. And yeah, I'm exaggerating a little bit, of course, but this is something in my mind. This isn't something that I am using a visual reference for. This is just me coming up with this in my mind from my observations and my learned experiences. So now we've got some of those deeper colors right through here, and I think you can tell that the color is deeper and maybe almost looks black, but it's not black at all. It's literally the first layer, ultramarine blue with a little bit of cerulean blue. Second layer, cerulean blue with just a tiny bit of white. And then that last layer, crimson red, um, cerulean blue, and just a tiny bit of white. Cadmium red, excuse me, not crimson. And I think I've said it before also in one of my previous videos. I use a very limited color palette and I mix my colors. I don't use secondary colors. I mix all my secondaries, which would be oranges, greens, and violets slash purples. Um, but I do use a couple of blues, mostly ultramarine, some cerulean, some sky blue, cadmium red medium, cadmium yellow medium, titanium white, A little bit of yellow ochre, which is like a deeper yellow, more earthy tone. Burnt sienna, just like a reddish brown earthy tone, great for skin. And burnt umber, which is like a deeper, richer brown, earthier tone, also good when mixing in skin tones and things of that nature. So those are the colors I use, and learning how to mix those colors has really helped me a lot. Add a little bit of more of this red in here. At this point, it's enough. I don't want to continue to add until I get dry in these areas, because then I'm just going to start smearing, and I don't want to smear my paints. So, if you're watching and you're a painter, I would love to hear from you in the comments. And again, if you have any questions for me, please feel free to ask me. I will answer them. My next step is I'm going to continue working on this image, but I'm going to work in this area, these mountains and these hills and these trees and um, all of that area. I'm going to work on that next. Then I'm probably going to drop into the land, and I'm going to continue to bounce back and forth until I feel like I've developed the image enough to where I'm satisfied with completion. So I'm going to go ahead and stop right here today. I hope that you got something from this. And again, please, if you have any questions for me, feel free to reach out to me um, in a comment and ask me any type of question that you may have. You can also find me on Instagram. My Instagram is Israel Solo Art. And I'm actually on TikTok as well. There's a few young folks that told me that, hey, maybe you should have a TikTok. So I do have a TikTok. That's Israel Solo Art also. And then lastly, I have a website, which is IsraelSolomonArt.com. And there you can see some things that I have, different projects that I've been involved in, different shows that I've been involved in, some sample work. And I even have a shop there where I sell, maybe smaller works and some other things, some other knickknacks and things like that. So I appreciate your time, and I hope that you come back for episode number 4. Peace.